Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
Upon seeing the reports of infidelity, the husband did the following. In today's first installment of a story similar to this. Enjoy the show! Some of my friends think I have the most glamorous job on earth, and I have to admit that sometimes I think so myself. However, this day was not one of those days. I'm a commercial photographer, and I love my job. I wouldn't trade it for anything else. But from time to time, I have to remind myself of this. Instead of being on the picturesque Peoria waterfront, shooting two beautiful models for Feminine Classics, a women's clothing line, I was driving north on I-55 about an hour from my home in Arlington Heights, a small suburb 25 miles northwest of Chicago. I had planned 3 full days for filming and thought everything was fine. The weekend before, I went to see the locations and took notes on which direction the sun would be shining at different times of the day. The models were some of the client's favorites. One was brought from New York, the other from Atlanta. Both were supposed to be waiting for us, but when we arrived, neither of them was there yet. A call to the modeling agency gave us an explanation. The advertising agency representative instructed his assistant to organize the girls, but he gave them the wrong dates. I tried calling some of the local Chicago models I use, but no one could commit to 3 days of filming on such short notice. We were doomed. The client wasn't going to pay everyone to spend 3 days enjoying Peoria hospitality, so we all packed up and headed home. At first, I was furious. I'm self-employed. If I don't work, I don't make money. Now I was looking at 3 days of doing nothing. There was no way I could have planned anything else as a replacement. I had just turned onto I-355, the final stretch of my way home, when it hit me. Why waste the rest of the week? It was only Wednesday afternoon. I had the whole Thursday and Friday left. I could give myself a 4-day weekend. Stacy, my wife, and I haven't been on vacation or gone anywhere for a long time. The sky was blue, there was no rain in the forecast, and I began to dream of a quiet little place just for the two of us. My thoughts began to wander. I imagined us sitting on a private balcony somewhere, sipping a glass of wine and watching a beautiful sunset. I started thinking about places we could go. Suddenly, the problem was that I didn't want to just go to some hotel or motel. I wanted something intimate and romantic. I was still scratching my head when I pulled into the garage. It was almost dinner time. I thought Stacy would be in the kitchen. You can hear the garage door opening and closing from anywhere on the first floor, so I wondered why she wasn't standing in the doorway asking why I was back. She must be upstairs, I thought, as I entered the empty kitchen. You can't hear the garage door from the upstairs bedroom. I was about to surprise her when I heard the sound of heels hitting the tiled hallway at the bottom of the stairs. I turned the corner and saw her in front of the mirror. The image in front of me stopped me in my tracks. Apparently, she had been to a stylist. Her beautiful wavy strawberry blonde hair fell loosely over her shoulders, and around her smooth neck hung the pearl necklace I gave her for our anniversary. Her makeup was flawless. The legendary little black dress barely covered her knees, and the ensemble was completed with black silk stockings with some kind of pattern. A pair of black shoes with 4-inch heels made the sound I heard when my jaw dropped. She saw my reflection in the mirror and literally screamed, "Shane, what are you doing at home?" Even from where I stood, I saw the horror in her face reflected in the mirror. "I have a better question. Where are you dressed up like that?" I demanded. I really took her by surprise. She started to stutter, but the best she could come up with was, honey, I was just going out with the girls." She should have known how ridiculous that sounded even before the words left her mouth. With girls? What the hell? Answer me, damn it. Where are you going and who is this idiot you're on a date with? She simply froze, standing there in numbness and fear. Her mouth was open, but nothing came out. I noticed her small purse by the door. Obviously, she had put it there to check herself one last time before leaving. "We'll find out right now," I stated, walking towards her. She must have been terrified. She knew I would never hit her or any other woman, but she flinched when I reached past her and grabbed the small purse. "What are you doing?" "I'm checking your phone now." "We're going to find out who this lover is," I growled. "Wait, please, Shane, don't," she begged. "It was a mistake, please." I saw her mascara run as she panicked, trying to grab her purse, but she was too slow. Try that again and I swear I growled through clenched teeth. I didn't finish the sentence because I didn't know what I would have done. Like I said, I would never hit a woman, but my voice was so full of anger and malice that I knew it scared the living daylights out of Stacy because she backed up against the wall. When I opened the purse, I saw one of the reasons for her panic. In addition to the phone, there was a safe and intimate box. I looked at her with disgust. Stacy looked like she wanted to cry, but her fear kept her from letting the tears out. I pulled out her phone and threw her purse on the floor. I immediately scrolled through her call log. She had clearly deleted her call history, but since she didn't expect me home for the next 3 days, she didn't bother to delete the most recent calls. The first call was to her friend Joan, the third was to her best friend Gwen Carlson, but in the middle was Joe Wexler. He and his wife Doris were supposedly our friends. It wasn't convincing enough. One call wasn't enough to make accusations, so I checked the text messages. Although she had deleted the history there too, several messages during the day were sent and received from Wexler. They started a couple of hours after I left in the morning. The last message was sent an hour before I returned home. Stacy, hello love, my husband left. Are you sure you can't come now? I'm still in bed. Wexler, damn, stop teasing me, beautiful. You know I can't take a day off. Besides, you said I couldn't come to your house. Stacy, I'm just teasing you. Wexler, see you soon. Doris thinks I'm leaving town, so we have the whole night ahead of us. Stacy, have you made your reservation yet? Wexler, yes, at the Country Hills Motel. It's right across from the restaurant. Stacy, hopefully, there will be a king bed, or rather a play area. Wexler, yes, I am convinced of this. The next message came from Wexler around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Wexler, damn, this day goes on forever. Cannot wait. Stacy, me too, love. I bought a new dress especially for you. Wexler, really? I hope it can be removed quickly. Stacy, there's not much to it. Besides, you haven't had a problem with this before. Wexler, you're teasing. I think I'll get out on time. Meet me at 6 o'clock at the restaurant. Stacy, I'll be there, love. I looked at my watch. It was 5:30. Country Hills Motel. I knew I'd seen it before, but I couldn't remember where. As I headed to the computer in my office, Stacy found her voice. Wait, Shane, what are you going to do? Please let me talk to you. I'm sorry, it didn't mean anything, honestly. It was just supposed to be a little fun. Please don't do anything rash. I ignored her pleas but thought about what she said as I walked to my office. Fun, right? Well, I hope they had fun, because what's next isn't going to be fun. I still held her phone in my hand as I leaned over my computer desk and typed in the name of the motel. As soon as I saw the address, I knew exactly where it was. It was a former Sheraton that had been bought about a year ago. Good old Joe was about to get the surprise of his life. I walked back into the living room where I dropped off Stacy's purse. She still followed me, begging me to sit down and talk to her. I took out her car keys, then went into the kitchen and literally ripped the phone off the wall. What are you doing? Stacy shouted. By then, her tears were already streaming down her cheeks, and with so much mascara running down her face, she looked like a circus clown. Making sure you can't call your lover and warn him, I growled. Warn him? Shane, what are you going to do? Please, honey, don't do anything stupid. By the time she finished screaming, I was already halfway to our upstairs bedroom. I grabbed the phone from the nightstand and yanked hard, ripping the cord from the wall and snapping the connector in half. Shane, please stop, she begged. You're scaring me. I thought, okay, maybe she'll think twice about cheating on her next husband. There was nothing more I could do. I knew she could run to the neighbors and use their phone, but I took a chance that she didn't know the number by heart. With cell phones these days, who remembers numbers? Besides, how could she tell her lover that her husband was on his way to kick his 5th place? She followed me to the car, screaming in my ear, but I had already tuned her out. All I could think about was what I was going to do with Joe Wexler. I saw Stacy kneel down in the middle of the driveway, her face buried in her hands. For a moment, my rage subsided, and I sadly wondered why she had cheated on me. Was Wexler more of a man than I am? That's when my anger returned, and I thought, I guess we'll figure this out soon. There were still a lot of cars on the roads, and it wasn't until 6:15 that I arrived at the Plateau restaurant, right across from the Country Hills Motel. I parked the car and headed toward the entrance when Stacy's phone vibrated with a text. "Wexler, you're late. I hope everything is okay." "No, everything is not okay," I shouted as I walked past the innocent hostess and burst into the restaurant. Wexler's head turned sharply in the direction of my voice, his eyes wide with fear as he saw me rushing toward him. "Shane," he blurted out in panic. He tried to get up quickly, but his heel got caught on something, and he, along with the chair he was sitting on, fell to the floor with a loud crash. There was fear in his eyes as he looked at me, and he tried to crawl away on his butt. So he's more of a man than I am, I thought. "Hey, what's going on?" I heard someone scream from afar, but didn't pay attention. I was focused on my target. "Shane, don't do anything crazy," Wexler muttered awkwardly as he got to his feet. "I hit him. This man is sleeping with my wife." I screamed. Okay, maybe he deserves it, but not here," someone said. I knew the fight was over, at least for now. Some of the hands that were holding me let go when they felt me starting to calm down. I looked down and saw that Joe had put his phone on the table after his last text. Most eyes were directed at him. The phone was exactly the same as mine. I took it and put it in my pocket. One of the guys who was holding me was now focusing his attention on the fool. I assumed he was either a bartender or a manager, based on how he took control of the situation. He shouted to someone named Eddie to call the police. When I looked around, I realized that no one was paying attention to me. Everyone was too concerned about their own problems. So I turned around and just walked out. I knew it was only a matter of time before the cops came for me, but I had one more thing to do before they arrested me: ruin Joe Wexler's life. I quickly walked to my car. As soon as I sat down and was out of sight, I took Wexler's phone out of my pocket and dialed his home number. Of course, Doris thought it was her loving husband calling. "Hey honey, I thought you were already on the plane. Is everything okay?" "Joe's not on the plane, Doris. He's not even leaving town. He's at the Plateau restaurant, where he was supposed to meet my wife. They're having an affair," I stated bluntly. "What? Who is this?" she screamed. "I don't believe you. Whoever you are, this is Shane Burke." "And I'm afraid it's true," I said. I heard her sigh. At that moment, I received a signal about a second call. I was going to ignore it, but the number seemed familiar. I had a hunch, so I acted accordingly. I told Doris to wait a second, pressed the switch button, and quickly set up a three-way call. Stacy's voice came through loud and clear. Joe, get out of there now." Shane came home early and caught me on the way out. "He knows. Joe, he's coming for you. Get out." Doris shouted from the other line. "You're a damn liar. I'll rip your heart out. If you want it so bad, you can take it." I heard Stacy scream. There was a short pause before Stacy realized she was talking to Doris. No. Stacy screamed. I heard her start crying again and someone else in the room with her. My suspicions were that it was Gwen, Stacy's best friend. I checked her number on Stacy's phone, and it matched the number she called from. She lived about 3 miles from us. Stacy probably went to her place to use her phone because she didn't want our neighbors to know what she did. Besides, we were all in the same circle of friends, and Gwen most likely had Wexler's number. The line went dead as Stacy sobbed in the background. I took a deep breath, trying to calm down. My mind was racing, processing the events of the last hour. 2 families destroyed just like that. Stacy and I didn't have children yet, but Joe and Doris had a son. My vision became hazy as I looked out the windshield and wondered the famous question that all men ask themselves in a similar situation: why? I thought she was happy. What went wrong? A few tears broke through and fell onto my cheeks, then continued down my face. I used to love her. I loved her with all my heart. How could she betray me like that? I don't know how many times I asked myself the same questions, but it didn't matter. I still wouldn't find the answers. I was still sitting there when I heard sirens approaching the corner. A few seconds later, 3 police cars arrived at the entrance to the restaurant. Damn, I thought. It really didn't take them long. I sat there for a minute, trying to decide what to do. Hell, I was sure Joe would tell them who I was. They would still come to my house to arrest me, so it's better to surrender immediately. The problem was that my car still had my camera equipment in it, and I wasn't about to leave it in the lot or let them tow it to the impound lot. I took out my phone and called Marcy, my assistant. She used my car to run errands and had her own keys. She was with me in Peoria and had just returned home. I was embarrassed to involve her, knowing how tired she was after a long trip, but when I explained the situation, she took care of everything like a pro. She said she would be at the restaurant in half an hour. We would leave Joe's car in the parking lot, and she would take mine home. I gave her the code so she could park the car in the garage. When she's done, she'll take a taxi to her car and add the cost of the taxi to her expense account. Sometimes I have no idea what I would do without her. Since the issue with the car was resolved, I no longer had any excuses. I returned to the restaurant, where 3 police cars were parked at the entrance. I expected the place to be swarming with cops, but everything looked normal. I looked around and saw a guy pointing at the bar. "They've all gone back," he told me. I nodded in acknowledgement and walked behind the bar, down a short hallway, into a door marked office. I heard voices from inside. I knocked. "Yes?" I heard someone shout from inside. The office had the guy who had held me earlier. Now I was sure he was the manager. 3 police officers and Wexler were also present. The fool was sitting on a chair with an ice pack on his cheek, which was already very swollen and turning purple. You should have seen the expressions on everyone's faces when I entered. "I just found out he's sleeping with my wife," I stated. "I think I've gone a little crazy." "Is this the man who hit you?" asked one of the policemen before the idiot could respond. The manager intervened. "Yes, that's him." "Mr. Wexler, do you want to file a complaint?" asked the same policeman. He must have been older than the others because he was asking all the questions. Wexler remained silent. I think he was trying to figure out how to hide this from his wife. I decided to knock that thought out of his head. He looked at me as I began to speak. "If you're afraid Doris will find out, she already knows," I said, tossing him his phone. Instinctively, he caught it with his right hand. Recognizing him, he leaned over in his chair and began to sob like a child. If I didn't hate that man so much, I might almost feel sorry for him. "Mr. Wexler," the policeman began, asking him the same question again. No, the idiot sobbed, shaking his head from side to side. His face was hidden in his hands. The policeman looked at the manager. "What about you? He caused a disturbance in your restaurant. Do you want to charge him with disorderly conduct?" I think the manager was on my side because he immediately refused to press charges. The policeman then turned to me. "Sir, may I have your documents?" I took out my wallet, pulled out my driver's license, and handed it to the man in blue. He took a notepad from his breast pocket and wrote down my information. When he finished, he turned his attention back to Wexler. "Sir, I strongly recommend that you go to the hospital and get an X-ray. You may have a broken jaw." My enemy was still crying, shaking his head, and muttering that he was fine. I saw the policeman's name as he turned around and handed me back my ID. "Okay, since no one is pressing charges, you can go. But don't go too far. If Mr. Wexler has serious injuries, the situation may change," Officer Dolby said. "Yes, sir," I replied, taking my documents and putting them back in my wallet. "Mr. Burke, you seem to have a violent streak. How is Mrs. Burke?" I knew he was just doing his job, but Officer Dolby was starting to annoy me. "I have no violent tendencies," I answered sharply. "Mrs. Burke is fine. I would never hit a woman under any circumstances. But if you think I'm such a bad person, try coming home and finding your wife all dressed up and ready for a date with one of your friends. See how you react." "Okay," he replied. "I understand." But you're lucky. You could be in big trouble right now. I suggest you calm down and talk to your wife. It might not be as bad as you think." I chuckled at the policeman's attempt to play marriage counselor and thanked him with a grin. Turning to leave, the manager spoke. "Mr. Burke, I don't want to see you here again." "That suits me too," I snapped. "I make friends quickly, that's for sure." As I left the parking lot, I mentally replayed the police officer's words. I'm really lucky. I could be in jail right now. I walked through the row of parked cars and discovered another problem. It's just not my day, I thought. My car was missing. The first thing that came to mind was that someone had stolen it with my equipment inside. Then I remembered my call to Marcy. Crap, she arrived faster than I expected. I looked around and, sure enough, across the aisle, I saw Marcy's old Chevy. So what now? I reached for my phone but hesitated. I knew how tired she was, and calling her to tell her it was all in vain didn't seem like a good idea. I looked back. No, I was not going to return to that damned place, even just to call a taxi. I looked across the road. There, a 6-story building painted green and white stood, the Country Hills Motel, another major player in my wife's betrayal. I immediately imagined my wife and that man in one of the rooms. I really didn't want to go there any more than I wanted to see the inside of the Plateau restaurant again. This was crazy, I told myself. It's irrational. I can't blame the building for what happens inside its walls. I crossed the road and entered through the front door. Just as I suspected, this was exactly what my wife and her lover would have done if that stupid assistant hadn't messed up with the filming. I walked up to the front desk and was immediately greeted by a young, exceptionally nice girl. Yes, sir, may I help you? Yes, could you give me the taxi number? I asked. Of course. Would you like me to dial it for you, sir? It's funny how sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change a person's attitude. For her, it was a simple gesture, part of her duties, but for me, it was the most pleasant thing I'd heard all day. A smile broke out on my lips as I answered, "That's very nice of you." "Thank you." I glanced at her name tag, Electa. "Wow, that's a pretty name." "Thank you," she replied, dialing the number with a small smile. The taxi brought me to my entrance. I entered the code on the garage door and checked to see if my car was there. On the spot, I didn't know what to expect when I entered the house. Would Stacy be there or not? Damn, I didn't know what would happen next. I had never been in this situation before, and I had never felt this way. Then reality began to hit. I had been running on pure adrenaline for the last couple of hours, but suddenly everything started to dawn on me. My wife, the woman I loved with all my heart, and my friend, my lover, cheated on me. My knees buckled. I had to sit on the steps leading into the house to avoid falling. I took a few deep breaths and sat there until I came to my senses. I entered the kitchen from the laundry room that connects the house and garage. The first thing I did was see if there was coffee. It was absent, of course. I thought, she wasn't expecting you home, remember? Stupid. Why would she have prepared it? I was pouring water into the coffee maker when I felt a presence. I looked towards the door to the living room. Gwen, what are you doing here? Where is Stacy? Apparently, she had a key to our house, which my wife gave her. Sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you. I didn't see your car and thought you were gone. Stacy gave me the key and asked me to pick up something for her. She's scared to come home, Shane. She's scared to death, her best friend replied. This is nonsense. I have never laid a hand on her or any other woman. She knows perfectly well that I would never hit her. She's not afraid you'll hit her, Shane. She's afraid of what you'll say to her. Fine, that's fine with me. Keep her with you until I pack my things and leave here, I growled. Shane, please don't do anything rash, Gwen pleaded. Reckless, stupid, crazy. Everyone's so damn worried, telling me how I shouldn't react to my wife sleeping with another man. Tell me, Gwen, how should I behave? I'd like to know because I never thought I'd be in this situation. Gwen lowered her head, walked over to one of the kitchen chairs, and sat down. Can I have a cup of coffee when it's ready? She asked. Of course, I replied, adding the last spoonful of coffee and turning on the coffee maker. I walked over and sat down on the chair opposite Gwen. Now that most of the anxiety had passed, depression began to take hold of me. I don't understand. 3 days. I was only supposed to be away for 3 days. She couldn't keep her legs closed that long. Why? Why did she throw our marriage down the toilet like that? Was I such a bad husband? Shane, if you were a bad husband, she wouldn't be so shocked. The reason she called Joe in such a panic wasn't for his benefit. She was worried about you, what you'd do, what kind of trouble you might get into. Get into? She said she's never seen me so angry. Yes, well, it's definitely not for me that she dressed up like that, and she definitely wasn't thinking about me when she had a night with Joe Wexler. Gwen didn't know what to say to that, and what could she say? I sat and just stared at the floor for a few minutes, waiting for the coffee to be ready. Then it occurred to me that I might be sitting with an accomplice. Gwen, did you know about this? Did you know she was cheating? No, Shane. Honestly, I didn't know anything about it until today. I was still suspicious. My wife had lied to me. What made me think her best friend would tell me the truth? Gwen saw the skepticism on my face. You don't believe me, do you? I don't know what to believe, Gwen. Maybe you should leave, take what you came to pick up, and go. I don't want to see anyone right now. I know, she said, a little shocked. Under normal circumstances, I'm a pretty friendly person. Shane, don't let this change who you are. I will never. It's already changed me, I snapped. I haven't hit anyone since 5th grade, and today I enjoyed it. Did you hit him? Did you hit Joe? Damn right I hit him. If we were alone, I would have beaten him to a pulp and enjoyed every moment of it. Are you going to be arrested? I noticed a note of real concern in her voice. I don't think so. At least not right now. The cops came, but Wexler refused to file a complaint. Who knows, maybe he'll change his mind later. I don't know. I'm sorry for Doris and their son. She looked me in the eyes. And of course, you too. I don't know what Stacy was thinking. Yeah, well, if you ever find out, tell me too. I still can't believe this is happening. My whole world turned upside down today, Gwen. My whole world. I didn't want to say more. I'm sorry, Gwen. If you truly didn't know about Stacy's affair, then I'm sorry. But if I ever find out that you knew about it, I swear I will never speak to you again in my life. Now please, just leave. I just want to be alone. Gwen looked sad as she stood up from her chair. Okay, let me go upstairs and get something for her, then I'll leave. With a gurgle and a spit, the coffee maker finished its job, miraculously turning simple tap water into a magical elixir. Just as Gwen returned carrying Stacy's small suitcase, she asked, Shane, what do you want me to tell Stacy? Can she come home? No, I don't want to see her. I don't want to talk to her. I don't want anything to do with her now. Keep her with you. Or, I couldn't think of anything. I don't know. She has a credit card. Let her go to a motel for a couple of days. If you don't want her, tell her she can come home Friday night. You won't be here then, will you? Gwen asked. No, I'll probably move into the back room of the studio temporarily, at least until I find an apartment. I walked the gloomy Gwen to the door. Look, Gwen, I'm sorry I snapped like that. I really loved Stacy with all my heart. I never thought she would do something like that. It's something I'll never be able to forget or forgive. Our marriage ended so quickly. Tell her that. Tell her I'll see the lawyer on Monday. I saw the sadness on Gwen's face. She was a good friend. I'll tell her, Shane. I'm sorry, she said as she walked out. This is wrong. You love each other. It's just wrong, were her last words as she headed to her car. I felt sad that I almost kicked her out of the house. I liked Gwen and her husband, Jerry. I didn't know them as well as Stacy did, but we went out together a few times. I really doubted that she knew about Stacy's affair. I couldn't be sure anyway, and in the mood I was in, I didn't want to be around anyone. I returned to the kitchen and poured myself some coffee. I sat down at the kitchen table and, looking blankly out the window, thought, I can't even say what I was thinking. Nothing made sense. Why? What the hell could she be thinking? My mind was somewhere far away. My hunger finally brought me out of my stupor. The only coherent thought I had in the last few hours was the realization that I was hungry. With all the problems associated with finding models earlier in the day, I hadn't had lunch. Damn, I haven't eaten anything since meeting the team at 6 o'clock in the morning. Did this really happen this morning? Did my life really fall apart in less than a day? I didn't want to cook, of course. I didn't want to go anywhere. In fact, although I was hungry, I didn't feel like eating. I was just so damn lost. Well, I had to eat. I looked at the clock and couldn't believe it was almost 10. I must have been sitting at my desk for a couple of hours without realizing it. There was a small diner nearby that stayed open until midnight. The food there was greasy and expensive, but I didn't care. I just needed something in my stomach. When I entered, the place was almost empty. A young couple sat in a booth by the window, and an older man sat at the center of the counter. I sat at the end of it. An older, plump woman approached with a menu and a coffee pot. Silently, I turned my coffee cup and looked at what I wanted to eat. It didn't take long. By the time she poured the coffee, I had placed my order. While waiting for my food, my mind began to search for the future. Now that I had let go of most of the anger, pain and resentment began to fill the void. I'd be fooling myself if I thought I could stay with her. I'm sure she knows it too. I've never been good at forgiving and forgetting. Anyone who knows me well knows this about me. Suddenly, I heard a plate being placed in front of me. Should I warm you up, honey? My waitress asked as she poured the coffee. She interrupted my thoughts, and I saw a plate of steak and eggs in front of me. Oh yes, please. But having done her job flawlessly, she was already gone by the time I spoke. Mentally closing the door on my marital problems, I tried to enjoy my late-night breakfast. It was almost 11:30 when I left. After getting up at 4 in the morning, driving to Poria and back, and going through all the physical and mental stress, I should have been absolutely exhausted. But I probably still had a little adrenaline left because I still felt excited. I didn't really want to return to an empty house. After starting the car, I tried to choose a direction. When I couldn't, I just took off and drove. I had no idea about my route. All I knew was that I found myself in front of my studio at 2 o'clock in the morning. I still had my gear in the car, so I carried everything inside before collapsing on the couch in the locker room. By then, I was so exhausted that I didn't even remember my head hitting the pillow. When I started to wake up, I heard a ringing in my ears. I lay there for a minute as the peaceful, liberating sleep gradually gave way to awareness. I sat up and dangled my legs over the edge of the mattress, shaking the cobwebs out of my brain. I finally realized that the annoying call was my phone. Hello? I muttered. I wasn't entirely conscious, and I must not have sounded like myself. That's probably why there was a pause before I heard the voice. Hello, is this Shane? Yes, that's him. How can I help you? I answered, looking at the clock on the wall. It was 10:30. Shane, this is Jerry Carlson. Did you know that Stacy spent the night with us? Finally, I came to my senses. Everything that had happened the day before came back into focus. Yeah, I told Gwen to stay at the motel if you don't want her. No, that's not it. I just didn't want to get involved in your business. I wanted to make sure you were comfortable with it. I appreciate it, Jerry. Yes, that suits me. Okay. Are you okay? You sound a little out of it. Yeah, I'm fine. Yesterday was a long day, and between all the problems and the hit on Wexler. Wexler? Did you hit him? Jerry sounded like he didn't know anything about Joe Wexler. Yeah, he cheated with Stacy. What? Why do you think you have it? I asked. Gwen said you and Stacy had problems, but she didn't say what they were. Oh, I'll have to think about it. I know they're best friends, but I don't feel comfortable. Jerry, I said, interrupting him, it's only until tomorrow night. I need a little time to get my things together, that's all. I told Gwen to send her home Friday night. There was a few seconds of silence. I don't know. I think it'll be okay, but now I'm mad at Gwen for not telling me. I heard a big sigh from the other end of the line. I'll let her stay as long as you're sure it's right for you. Yes, Jerry, that suits me. Okay, I'll let her stay until tomorrow evening, but not a minute longer. You know, I never liked Wexler. He always seemed too cunning, narcissistic, you know what I mean? Yeah, well, I wouldn't leave him alone with Gwen, that's for sure. Oh, I can guarantee that. Okay, Shane, I'll let you go. I'm sure you have a lot to do. Thanks for letting me know what's going on. If you need anything. Thanks, Jerry. I really appreciate it. Maybe I'll ask you to hold Wexler while I pour molten lead down his throat in a little while. Ha, he laughed. At least you haven't lost your sense of humor. You're joking, right? I chuckled quietly. Yeah, I think so. Don't be too hard on Gwen. They've known each other since 4th or 5th grade, something like that. Yeah, I know. It still annoys me, Shane. And with that, he hung up. I sat on the edge of the bed for a few minutes, thinking about what I needed to do. I didn't care about furniture or such things at the moment, but there were things that I needed. I had to take almost everything from my home office, the books I wanted, my computers and printer, and some light photography equipment that I kept for family events and that sort of thing. Huh, I chuckled to myself. I don't think I'll be filming things like this anymore for a while. I still wanted to eat, but I needed something. Once I started loading everything, I didn't want to stop until I was done. I went to Denny's, 3 blocks from the studio. I drank 3 cups of coffee, chatted a little with the waitress, and ate a big hamburger. I was just finishing up when my phone rang. It was my assistant, Marcy. I picked up the phone and said, "Hello. Are you okay? I was expecting you to call and ask me for the bail. Have you been arrested?" "No, the person I hit isn't filing a complaint. I'm fine." "God, Shane. Are you sure?" "They're cheating. It's just, well, Stacy just doesn't seem like it." "Oh, I'm sure. No doubt about it. I'm moving into the back room of the studio temporarily, so if you see a light there at night, don't be alarmed." "Okay. I'm sorry, Shane. If there's anything I can do to help." "Thanks, Marcy." Nothing needed yet. We said our goodbyes. I paid for lunch and headed back to the studio to pick up the SUV. It took me 3 trips back and forth between home and the studio, but I finally moved everything I wanted. It was a little after 8 when I finished. I was hungry again, so I went to the nearest store and bought some frozen dinners that I could heat up in the microwave. When 9:30 came, I felt bored, lonely, and sad, very, very sad. I lay down and wondered why I'm so unapologetic when it comes to forgiveness. This is not by choice, and some people who know me consider it a character flaw. Stacy saw this firsthand at my 10th high school reunion. As a child, I took on odd jobs or part-time jobs. Over the course of several years, I saved every cent I earned until I had enough money to buy my first car. As a junior, it was an old wreck, but it ran. Janet Walters was the first girl to ride in it. After that, we started meeting regularly. After 3 months, I thought my life was good. I studied well, had many good friends, my own car, and one of the most beautiful girls in school as a friend. What else could life offer? Then, one Saturday evening, I came to pick her up for our usual date. Her mother answered the door and seemed a little embarrassed. She told me that Janet had gone out with her friends a little earlier. I asked if she would come back for our date, and she said she didn't think so. I thought, what the hell? If it's something special, fine. But at the very least, she could call and let me know, I was sure she would call me on Sunday to apologize, but I didn't hear a word. By Monday, I was seething. She and I had time to work independently before lunch. We had the opportunity to go to the library, but I preferred to do homework at school, while Janet liked to go to the library to look at fashion magazines. I hadn't seen her since Friday and couldn't wait any longer to talk to her and hear her excuses. When I entered the library, she and her friend Debbie were standing at the magazine rack, their backs to the door. They were so busy talking and giggling that they didn't see or hear me when I approached them from behind. As it turns out, I didn't have to ask her, they were discussing Saturday night. "So you made it, huh? Went on a date with Brad Turner?" "You're in luck, girl," Debbie said with a small chuckle. I knew Brad Turner. He was a couple of years older than us and had already finished school. I always thought he was a narcissist. Yeah, I was supposed to go with Shane, but I ran into Brad at the mall the day before. He works at Carbu, they sell seemingly cool hubcaps and stuff. He bought me lunch and asked me out on a date. I mean, would you say no? Of course not, Debbie replied. Does Shane know you went with someone else? Are you kidding? No, of course not. What did you tell him? What excuse did you give him? I couldn't think of anything. I thought of saying that I went with friends, but he knows all my friends. Brad was supposed to pick me up half an hour before Shane, so I just left. I decided to leave my mom to deal with Shane. Both girls thought it was funny. Was he angry? I don't know. I haven't seen him since. Mom said he was just surprised and left. I think I'll find out at dinner. What are you going to tell him? Oh, I have everything thought out, she boasted. I spent all day on Sunday coming up with plausible lies, but I decided everything. Are you going to continue dating Brad? Maybe a couple more times, but he's not the most exciting person. I have more fun with Shane. He makes me laugh and entertains me. Brad likes to talk about himself too much. No, I think you should date him from now on, I said, interrupting their conversation. I heard Janet say, "Oh," as I walked away. I didn't say another word to her. 10 years later, she saw Stacy and me at our reunion and tried to talk to me. I just took my wife's hand and left without saying a word. Stacy couldn't believe my rudeness, but I just couldn't help it. I don't see how the passage of time has anything to do with forgiveness. Of course, the pain may subside over time, but that doesn't mean you'll forget. So why forgive? I believe in treating people the way you want to be treated. I also believe in loyalty, maybe to an extreme. Even though I've moved twice further afield each time, I still go to the same hairdresser I did when I was 19. I have clients that I outgrew years ago, but I won't give up on them. I wouldn't be where I am today without them, and I'm not going to thank them by cutting them off, even if it makes good business sense. I know people think I'm too tough when it comes to things like this, but I guess it's like an unspoken moral code for me. This is who I am, and I won't be true to myself if I try to change it to please others. You'd think that knowing what I was like would stop Stacy from cheating on me, but obviously that's not the case. I felt a few tears escape the corners of my eyes and roll down my face. I've never been so hurt, ever, and knowing that this is someone who claimed to love me, that's what makes the pain so deep, so intense, so damn real. I lay there looking at the ceiling tiles and wondered why. I think all men in my situation ask themselves this question, but it seemed so out of the blue, no warning, no nothing. One moment I was a happily married man, and the next moment my marriage was over. Of course, the first thought is about Intim. Was she really that unsatisfied? Of course, if you read articles about cheating, they will say that women cheat for emotional reasons. I don't know, and I don't think it really matters. I had not cried since I was 3 years old, but that night I tasted my own tears several times as I lay there and tormented myself with such questions that didn't have answers. Eventually, I fell asleep, waking up to the sounds of city traffic instead of bird song. It's a great way to start your day, I thought, though it wasn't true. I took a deep breath and stood up with a long, depressing sigh to face the day. I should be in my cozy bed with my Stacy, all wrapped up in my arms. I could just see her looking at me with a big smile. Damn, how I missed her already. I warmed up a cup of coffee and then took a shower. I felt a little better after that, not much, but a little. I went to Denny's and wondered what to do after breakfast. I needed some kind of distracting activity. I couldn't just sit in the studio all day, I'd go crazy. I was taking my last sip of coffee when the girl from the motel popped into my head. Don't ask me why. I hadn't thought about her since she called the taxi, but there she was in my imagination. She had full black hair, high cheekbones, flawless skin, and the largest dark brown eyes I had seen in a long time. I remembered her natural smile and friendly personality. I wondered if she ever thought about modeling. I didn't know if she had what it took until I put her on camera, but I had a hunch. I finished my coffee, paid the bill, and decided to go to the motel to see if it was open. I think I had a little more pep in my step when I got back into the studio. I took my car keys and laptop. I was pleasantly surprised when I walked into the lobby and saw her behind the counter. Now all I had to do was figure out how to approach her. I've helped new models get started, but I've never tried to convince anyone to become a model. I waited until the guy working with her disappeared for a few minutes and then walked over to her. "Hello." "Hello, sir. May I help you?" She greeted me with that natural smile again. "You probably don't remember me." "Of course I remember you from that day. Would you like me to call you a taxi again?" No. This time I have a car," I chuckled. "But you helped me a lot that day, and I hope I can repay you. Here's my business card. My name is Shane Burke. I'm a commercial photographer. I work with models almost every day, and I was wondering if you've ever thought about a modeling career. I need to take a few test shots, but I think the camera will love you." "Test shots?" I saw the skepticism on her face. I could anticipate the next question before she asked it. "Will I need to undress?" One of the downsides of my profession was the presence of creeps who used cameras to try to seduce girls. Most of them were guys who didn't know which end of the camera to look through, but there were even a few so-called professionals among them. I think every industry has its bad elements. "No, you won't have to take off your clothes," I told her. "Look, I have a laptop. I can show you what I do. Do you have a coffee break? If not, we can meet for lunch at my expense." I could almost see the wheels turning in her brain as she tried to figure out whether I was real or not. Finally, I saw her smile slightly. "Okay, I have lunch at 11:30. There's a restaurant right across the street." Okay, this left me in a quandary. She talked about the plateau. "Oh," I hesitated a little. "I'm not really welcome there." "It's a long story," I said with a grin, trying to make it seem like a small matter. "Is there another place?" "Well, there's a Starlight Cafe around the corner." "Will that suit you?" I asked. "Yes, I eat there sometimes." "Okay, see you at the Starlight Cafe at 11:30, I said with a smile. When I left, I was already thinking about the upcoming shoot for which she would be ideal. I had an hour before lunch, so I took out my phone and started making a few calls. My first call was to Monk. Although she was relatively new to the business, she was one of the best makeup artists I had worked with in a long time. After the greetings, I told her why I was calling. "Monk, would you like to work as a TFP, time for print?" "Perhaps," she replied. "What do you have?" "A new star. Or at least, that's what I think. She's never modeled before, but I think she's a natural beauty." "How's her skin?" "She's slightly dark-skinned. I think she's Greek. Black hair and dark eyes. You know that jewelry shoot that's coming up next month where they want that sensual look? She's perfect. When do you want to do it?" "I don't know yet. I'm not even sure she wants to try modeling. I'm going to talk to her in an hour." "Well, I'm interested. Let me know if it works out." "Absolutely, Monk, and thank you." My next call was to Donna, a stylist I work with often. I was almost sure she would be available, and I was right. Marcy would complete my team. Now, all I needed was to get my potential model interested. I was tired of waiting in the parking lot, so I went in and ordered a coffee while I waited. When she came in, she had someone with her. As they approached, I saw that he had a badge indicating he was an employee of the motel. I started to think that I was wasting my time. "Hi, Mr. Burke. I hope you don't mind I brought a friend," she said as she sat down. "Oh, don't worry. Tony will pay for his own lunch." I had already told the waitress that I was waiting for someone else, so she quickly came over when she saw them. I was a little annoyed and was going to let her friend pay for himself, but by the time we ordered, I decided she was just being cautious. I guess I can't blame her for that, so I told the waitress to include everything in one bill. As soon as our waitress left, Tony spoke before I could even open my mouth. "How can we be sure that you are who you say you are?" he asked rather aggressively. "Anyone can print business cards. Do you have any recommendations we can ask?" I understood bringing someone with me, but trying to put me in a defensive position when I was just trying to offer her an opportunity was going overboard. Besides, I really didn't want to do it. "Okay, this obviously won't work." I stood up and threw $30 on the table before picking up my laptop. "Lunch is on me," I said, and then left. Returning to the studio, I found my phone ringing. I looked and saw that it was Marcy. "Hey, boss. How are you?" "Ha," I grinned. "It's been better. Are you in the office?" "Yes, I went out for a while, but I'm back. I'll probably go to daily at noon. Do you want me to come?" "No, there's nothing to do." "Well, I can come and keep you company. Maybe we can plan a future shoot or something." "Thanks, Marcy. I really appreciate the offer, but I'm fine. Enjoy the long weekend. See you Monday morning." "You're sure?" "Yes, I'm sure. Don't think about this place until I see you." She thanked me again, and we said goodbye. I went to Daily for lunch, which I hadn't had before. When I got back, it was about 2:30. I was so lost, I didn't know what to do. I lay down in the back room and cursed that stupid assistant again. If it weren't for him, none of this would have happened. I would be doing what I love and would be completely unaware of my wife's infidelity. I thought about just trying to take a nap to kill time, but I couldn't sleep. My mind was too busy replaying everything that had happened. Finally, I got up and sat down at the computer. Maybe I could experiment with some different processing techniques to distract myself for a while. It was almost 5 when I gave up. I was thinking about going to the cinema when I heard a knock on the door. I walked into the reception area and looked out the window. It was Electra, and she was alone. I opened the door and let her in. "Hi," she said somewhat shyly. "I'm glad I made it before you left. I wanted to apologize to Tony. He was just trying to protect me." "Did you come here to apologize?" "Yes. I felt bad when you left. I thought about calling, but I wanted to apologize in person." I was impressed. I didn't know where she lived, but it was 45 minutes from here, probably longer during rush hour. "I appreciate it," I said. "Well, since you're here, let me show you the studio." I gave her a short tour and then returned to the office and offered her coffee. While she looked at my website and portfolio, she was impressed and began to show interest but was still a little doubtful. "Do I need to sign any contracts or something?" "No, no contracts. The only thing I'll ask you to sign is a modeling agreement. This will give me and the client permission to use your likeness. If you start modeling full-time, you'll be signing a lot of these." She considered my words for several seconds. "Do you want to take some pictures?" she asked enthusiastically. "Not today," I replied. I saw the disappointment on her face. "You need a hairdresser, a makeup artist, and something other than this green uniform." Her enthusiasm evaporated quickly. "How much will all this cost me?" Just as quickly, her enthusiasm returned when I answered, "Nothing. It won't cost you anything. I'm offering you an opportunity to make money, not spend it. I already have a makeup artist and a hairdresser. You'll need to sign a modeling agreement, like I said. That's your payment to them. They'll be able to use the photos for your own advertising. Is this suitable for you?" "Yes, sure. What do you think of our story today?" In my opinion, the husband was smart enough to reveal his wife's infidelity before he even saw the text messages. What's your impression and opinion? Write in the comments. See you in the next video.